Hello everyone, Jonathan here from M Games, and welcome to the second episode in the Another Space Invaders clone tutorial series. In this tutorial, we'll be setting up the main menu, GameOver menu, downloading a font file, and creating a script file. Let's get started. So for this tutorial series, we'll need a font file. Open up your web browser and navigate to gumroad.com/i/TEEFS. There will be a purchase button, but you can type in 0 if you want to get it for free, or enter in a number and you'll buy the font. Once that's downloaded, we'll navigate to the Downloads folder, double-click on the Sabot font.zip file, hold Shift and left-click the Sabot Filled OTF and Sabot Regular OTF. Right-click and copy. Navigate to your desktop, the Godot Invaders project files, go to Assets, and right-click New Folder. Enter in Fonts. Enter into the Fonts folder, right-click, and paste. Now that we have the font files added to our project, open the Godot editor. Now that the Godot project manager is open, left-click the Invaders project, left-click Edit. You'll notice that we didn't launch into the scene we were editing last time. This is because the Godot editor doesn't know the default project to load into. We can change this over in the top left, go to Project, Project Settings, and over in the Applications section, click Run, and then Main Scene, click the folder icon next to it, navigate to Assets, Scenes, Menus, Main Menu. Click Open, and now the main scene has been set. I will still need to open that. In the bottom left, there's a File Systems tab. You can navigate to the Assets, Scenes, Menus, and Main Menu scene. Double-click that, and we are now editing the main menu scene. Now that we have the main menu open, left-click the main menu root node, left-click the plus icon to add a node, click Margin Container. The Margin Container node will help us to center our UI while also giving us control over the empty space around the edge of our screen that the UI can't stretch over. First off, let's go over to the Inspector tab, go down to the Rect section, change the minimum size to 56 by 224. Let's minimize the Rect section, go down to the Custom Constraints section, enter in 10, 20, 16, and 4. Now that we have the custom constraint set up, let's rename the Margin Container node to MainMC. Now let's add another node to it. This one will be a VBox container. Change this to MainVB. And inside of this, let's create some text labels. So we'll add a label node. Change this to title label. And inside of the Inspector tab, change the text variable to A Invaders C for another Invaders clone. You'll notice that the text is kind of offset. So for this to be correct, we're going to change Align to Center and V-Align to Center. Now the text, whenever we play the game, looks a little blurry and washed out. So we're going to fix that by scrolling down to the Custom Font section, left-click the arrow beside Empty, and choose New Dynamic Font. Just to the left of the arrow button, click the Dynamic Fonts text area. This will drop down some more settings. Go to Font, and where it says Font Data, left-click the arrow, and choose Load. We're going to navigate to our Fonts folder, It'll be assets, fonts. Then I'm going to go with sabotfilled.otf. Left click open, and you'll notice the font will change. We can now close the font section and expand the settings section. Change size to 18, outline to 1, use filter, and click the outline color. We're going to change this to a red of color 47, green 99, blue 132, and alpha 131. Press the escape key to close the color window. Now when we playtest the game, the font should look crisp and it should have a nice outline, but the background color is too light for our game. So let's add a color Rect node. Do this by left-clicking in the Scene tab on the main menu root node, then add a node, and look for color Rect. Double-click to add. Now what we're going to do is drag this to the top of our scene tree. Do this by holding left mouse button, and then moving your mouse cursor. We will move this in between the main menu root node and main MC. Now it will be in the background. Left-click color Rect again. You'll notice once we have the color Rect selected, there are these different dots around the square shape. If you hold your mouse cursor and left-click and drag on one of the corners, it will scale the two connected edges. If you hold Shift while dragging, it will scale uniformly. If you hold just Alt, it will adjust the adjacent sides. If you hold Shift and Alt, it will scale from the center of the shape object. I'm going to scale it to around here, then hold my mouse cursor over the corner and scale it to the edge bounds of the screen area. Now the color is way too bright, so in the Inspector tab, go to the color variable, left click, and drag all the way down to black. Now when we playtest the game, the text is clearly visible, and the whole screen just looks nicer. Let's close that window. Now we're going to duplicate the title text label. Left-click the title label, hold Ctrl, and tap the D key. That will create a duplicate of the title label. Double-click the Title Label 2 node, rename it to Interact Label. Press Enter. And this is good, but the text is obviously wrong, so go to the Inspector tab, and in the text, change it to Press Enter to Start. Now the text is too big, so let's go down to the Custom Font section. Click the arrow button, select Make Unique. This will allow us to change the font settings without affecting the title label. Expand the settings section, change size to 8. Press Enter, and now the font size should be correct. You'll notice that the margin container is kind of offset right now. Left-click on Main MC, and in the Inspector tab, go to the Rect section, change the size down to 256. Now our font is centered again, but the Interact label is too close to the title label. For this, we're going to left-click on Main VB, click the plus icon, add a V Separator node. Drag the V Separator node in between the title label and Interact label. You'll notice a little line in between the two labels. Left-click on the V Separator node, go to Size Flags in the Inspector tab, go down to Vertical, and click Expand. But the Interact label shouldn't be at the bottom of the screen. Let's duplicate the V Separator node by left-clicking V Separator, holding Ctrl, and tapping D key. Now let's drag the V Separator 2 node under the Interact label. Now the Press Enter to Start is at the center of the screen, But we have these lines that probably shouldn't be here. So let's hold Control and left-click the two V separator nodes. Go to the Inspector tab, select Visibility. Go to Self-Modulate, and change the alpha value down to 0. Notice the two separator nodes are still separating while they're invisible. If you were to change the visibility, they would no longer affect the separation. Now that we have the main menu layout set up, let's add a score section. Left-click Main VB, click the plus icon to add a node, select HBox Container. Change this to Score HB. Now, add another node, this time a VBox container. Change this to Score VB. And inside of this, let's add a label. To do that, we're going to left-click on Interact label, Control-D, and drag it into the Score VB. Change the Interact label to Score Label. Now, we're going to change the text from Press Enter to Start to Score and 5 zeros. Now, one thing that we're going to do is change Align to Left. Now that our text label is set up, we're going to duplicate it. Select the Score label, hold Control, and tap D. We're going to change this to High Score label. Change the text to High Score. Now that we have our score labels set up, I want them to appear in the bottom right of the screen. Select Score HB, change alignment to End. Now our main menu is set up. We probably don't need the score label though, so let's select the score label and click the eye icon to the right of that. Now let's playtest the scene. We have our title label, the Press Enter to Start is in the center of the screen, and the high score is at the bottom right of the screen. We can now close this. And now the main menu is finished. Now one thing we're going to do is we're going to add a script to this, so that we can change the scenes whenever we press Enter. But another thing to keep in mind is that we need a keyboard input. So let's go to Project, Project Settings, go to Input Map tab, and in the action, type start_btn, tap the Enter key, and while we're at it, we'll add a shoot button, so shoot_btn, tap the Enter key. Now the plus icon beside these will allow you to add an input map. So we're going to click the plus icon next to Start, click the key, and press the Enter button. Press the OK to accept, and beside Shoot button, click the plus icon, click key, and tap the space bar. Press OK, and we can now close this window. Now that our input maps are set up for the Enter key and spacebar, let's left-click on the main menu, right-click, and attach script. We'll change a few settings. Template, I like to change to no comments. And in the path, we're going to change this to Assets, and let's create a new folder. Call it Scripts. Press the Enter key. And we'll create a new folder here. Call this Menus. Press OK. And MainMenu.gd is good for now. Click Open. And click Create. We are now loaded into the script editor. Select line 2, tap the Enter key, and type in export. This will create a public variable that you'll see when you select the main menu root node and search in the inspector later. Create brackets, string, comma, quotation marks, menus, comma, levels. Then beside this, enter var scene dir equals menus. So what this is getting is the scenes path, and it's getting either menus or levels. Currently we don't have a levels folder, so let's left click on scenes in the file system browser, right click, new folder, call this levels. Press the enter key. Now we're determining whether or not we have menus or levels directory. Let's duplicate this line 2 times. So Control C, enter, Control V, enter, Control V. Now what we're going to do is enter in scene and level. Now in the scene variable, we're going to change this to MainMenu and GameOver. Now in level, we're going to change this to L1, L2, then we'll add another comma and quotation marks, L3. We're also going to change that to L1 and this to main menu. Now that we have our 3 export variables, we can press Ctrl and S to save, or scene save all. And now if we select our main menu, you'll notice in the inspector we have scene dir, we have scene and level. If you left click, you can change it from levels to menus, and main menu, game over, and L1 to L2, L3. But currently it doesn't do anything, so let's go back to the scripts tab. We'll go full screen. Now we're going to create a variable, which is going to be var next scene, and we'll just leave it at that. Now for the ready, we're going to type next scene equals str, brackets, quotation marks, res, colon, 2/, assets, slash, scenes, slash, we're going to put in a comma. We're going to use one of our variables up here, which is going to be scene dir. Then we'll put comma, quotation marks, /, comma, and scene. Then we'll put comma, quotation marks, .tscn. So what this is basically getting is the scene file, which if I were to go over to main menu and right click, copy path, and then below this I could press Ctrl V. We'll move this over a bit. So this is the path that we're getting. So scene dir is equal to menus, and main menu is equal to scene, and .tsn is the scene extension. Now this is good, but we're not getting any of the levels that we have set up. So let's press enter and create a new line. Now we're going to type in if scene dir equals menus, colon, go down here to line 11 and press the tab key. Now I'll only set the next scene variable if scene directory is equal to menus. Let's press enter and the backspace button, type in elif scene dir equals levels, colon, enter, and let's just copy and paste this line. Then change scene to level. So this is the quick way of doing it. We could create a custom function that allows us to set these automatically and only use one line, but for our purposes in this tutorial, it's good enough. Let's click on line 14, press the enter key twice, press the up arrow to go into line 15, type in func _ process, press the enter key. So now we're going to get our input. Type in if input dot is action just pressed start button, create a colon, and press the enter key. Now we're going to press the underscore, change scene, brackets. Now what this is doing is calling a custom function whenever the start button is pressed. It's throwing an error because it doesn't exist yet. So let's press the enter key and backspace twice, press the enter key again to create a line 19, type in func _ change scene, brackets, and colon, press the enter key, and now we're going to change our scene. Type get tree dot change scene to load next scene. Now press Ctrl S to save. Click on the main menu root node, change scene dir to levels, and click play. The scene changes, but it's a blank scene because the level doesn't exist, and we get an error message. But if we change this over to menus, and we're going to load into main menu, click the play button, and tap enter, it looks like nothing happens because it's loading into the same scene. But there's no error message. And that's it, the main menu is created. But first, let's duplicate this. We're going to go to Scene, Save Scene As, in Menus, change this over to GameOver. Save. Now change the main menu root node to GameOver. This is good, but let's make the GameOver screen a little more interesting. Let's unhide the score label, and where the title label is, press Ctrl D to duplicate. Change this over to GameOver. Change the text to Game Over. Scroll down to Visibility. Change Self-Modulate to kind of a red color. Somewhere around 158 red, 73 green, 73 blue, and 255 alpha. Press the escape key to close the window. And if we press the play button, we have our game over screen with our score and high score. If we press the enter key, we'll change back to main menu. Let's open up the main menu scene. Open recent main menu. Let's click on our main menu root node. Change scene to game over. Play. And now, when we tap the enter key, it goes to the game over screen. And when we tap the enter key again, it goes back to the main menu scene. Now that we have our main menu and game over scenes, we have our high score and score labels that don't do anything. For this, we're going to need a global script. Click on the Scripts tab. Click on File, New Script. I'm going to click on the path. Go to Assets, Scripts, right-click, New Folder, Global. and change the script to globals.gd. Click Open, Create. Let's create two variables. Click on line 2, press the Enter key, then type in var high score equals 5 zeros. Press the Enter key, var score equals 5 zeros. Let's erase the funcReady, because we don't need that, and save. Now that we have our global high score and score variables, let's set them up so that Godot knows that they're global. Go to Project, Project Settings, Auto Load tab, and the path, click the folder icon, navigate to Assets, Scripts, Globals, and globals.gd. Click the Open button, and click the Add button. Now we have a global autoload called Globals. Click the Close button, go to MainMenu.gd, in the Ready function, create a new line at line 15, and type in get node, where you're going to get score, high score label, and dot text equals string, quotation marks, high score, colon, comma, type in globals dot high score, then at the end of the brackets put dot pad zeros and 5, because we want 5 zeros. So this is a little long. What we can do, since we have the path to the label, we can copy this, press Ctrl X, and we'll create a line 9, and then on ready var high score label equals, and then our path to the high score label. And we can copy this, and in the get node high score label dot text, we'll now be able to get our global's high score and pad it with 0. Now if we play the game, the high score will have 5 zeros, just like it did before. But if we go to globals.gd and change the high score to something like 500, then click play, you'll notice that high score equals 500. And this concludes episode 2 of another Space Invaders clone tutorial series. Thank you for watching.